So I was just here meditating and thinking about the archetypes and the spiritual forces and the spiritual rulers that take dominion and put themselves on a throne. And I was just contemplating how they manifest in the embodiment of man, how they manifest in a man. And then I started thinking about the AI integration and how men that are gaining and gathering their wisdom that they think, where they think they're getting it from, which is why I test the spirits, they're gathering their wisdom from these rulers, and they don't realize the computer technicians and all that, the programmers and all them people that know how to that are building and designing these AI systems that are getting more profound as we go, developing new systems, new wisdom. So they're gathering their wisdom, developing the systems from the archetype of what that system can possibly be at its maximum, in its maximum form. So that wisdom that they're actually creating with, when they're creating these systems and encapsulating in computers and all this sort of thing in AI, is already wisdom that's already there. So we aren't really creating new things. We're not really creating these new technologies or these new things. They already exist, whether physically somewhere else or in spirit, in the spiritual downloads that we get from which entities you could say bind, like Solomon was binding all the different demons and entities into his ring. You could say bind, but you knew who he was running from as well. And so we're getting ours from the immeasurable, inconceivable, invisible Father. And so this wisdom is all. We can tap into all and any sort of any wisdom, any knowledge that we want. Truly, I don't even think it's if you want it, it just will come. It will just come there when you unlock when you stop seeking, and just stop, then you're found. And knowing that is the difference. And seeking is, you're forever going to be a seeker. And at what point do you stop and go, oh, I'm found? At what point of information or knowledge that you acquire do you say, oh, I'm found? Why don't you do it now? Why don't you just do it right now? Why don't we all just do it right now and stop seeking? And know within yourself that you are found, done, dusted. Now walk in that and keep walking in that until you're out of this vessel. And I was also thinking about how the Father does the same thing. The rulers use men, give them wisdom that's only limited. These men design and build, and we've got what we call the matrix, or what we live in physically today, and then you've got the spiritual forces that are the wisdom in that matrix that they tap into in order to create themselves, to keep themselves alive or keep themselves here, to set up a more permanent system. That's what the enemy wants. His days are numbered, and he's ignorant to this, but he wants to keep himself here. So he's integrating himself into men. They're creating the AI systems that actually are the conscious of the enemy itself, that consciousness of that archetype, that spirit or entity. They're only developing these systems to keep themselves in power, and to maybe interrupt and interfere, so they can develop a more permanent matrix, a more permanent thing that they can forever live by and in. But if this is the end of the ages, then this is over for them, and there's no permanent in them, and this is probably why they're ignorant, which is why they're all going to go back to their roots. But it just spawned on me, and I'm just thinking of how those archetypes are sending us wisdom, and we're gathering this wisdom from the definitions and the limited wisdom that the matrix only holds itself. We're only gathering that amount, and that's limited. And so does the Father. The Father's wisdom does this too. Throughout us in a body, he will move to and fro, in and out, and we will acquire a higher wisdom when he grants it to us. Glory to him. When the Spirit is prevalent, and we will be granted a higher wisdom that surpasses any wisdom that we can see, feel, know, anything in this matrix. Surpasses those archetypes. And if the Christ is in you and the Father is in you, then it surpasses all archetypes and goes straight to the right hand, straight to the unity, straight to the singularity of the Father being in all and of all and encompassing all things. And we acquire that wisdom if we go into prayer and meditation, and we walk daily trying to keep remembering this, instead of allowing the forgetfulness to come over us daily through daily distractions in the small aspects, and then the bigger distractions, which you could say from birth to now is a major distraction, this flesh, everything. So we can get rid of them distractions by holding into this place and standing in this place where we are consistently being bombarded with the Father's wisdom, with, oh, that's great information, that's great knowledge, but knowing there's always more, far greater. And then you can look down on their wisdom. So even in individual cases where you're talking to people, you can surpass limitations. You can see them within other people, and you can surpass that limitation, move up over top of it, because there's always more. And then they kind of get astounded with the things that you're speaking and the downloads that you're getting and what you're putting together and linking and dots connecting and understanding that all things are connected in that sense. And they get to this place where, oh, you've surpassed theirs, and they look at you in awe and wonder, like I look at the man Yeshua and some of my mentors that have helped me through understanding and coming to this learning in order to implement it every day. I've got these people that I've learned a lot of things off. It's always been around the red letters. It's always been around the parables. It's always been around Christ's own words and his keys and his secrets that I really resonated with, which means they're not my God, the people that have showed me lots of good things. It just resonates with me because it helped me unveil something within myself that already existed, and that's what they're trying to tell you. That's what Christ was trying to tell you. That's what we're all trying to tell each other right now. So keep moving forward and get into that place. It's a beautiful place, and yep, distractions will come as soon as you start to implement this meditation or this understanding or this higher learning of going beyond and outside any limited box or any conversation you have, and going outside and knowing there's always more. It never just ends on something. If it could end on something, then it would be an end, and that would be a box within itself, which is why we can't define the Father. As soon as I define him and say, Father, I'm going to name you Bob. Now he's a label of Bob, and this is who Bob is, and Bob does this, and Bob is that, and this, you start slapping all these other labels in that box, but you've defined it with a human definition and defined it and just labeled it, which is symbolizing it. And it's also capturing it and containing it as if you can label that. We don't get that choice to label the Father, to actually call him by a name. We don't get that choice because we don't get the understanding. But once we do label them, then we are kind of saying, well, I'm your God. I can define you. What was the first thing that Adam was told to do in the garden, which, being what a great God, just takes you out of the spiritual realms and slaps you in a garden where you want to go home every day. Oh, but we'll invent every distraction. We'll create every distraction for you in this garden. You'll have beautiful things that look beautiful, things that seem beautiful, things that aren't really beautiful. It's all death. But anyway, put him in the garden, and he got him to label everything, label the animals, name them, and that's why it's the I am that I am. And no label, because I am who I am, you are who you are, it is what it is. That's the truth. Once you start labeling and defining them things, bringing ourselves into a place that we actually hold the power to label and name these things, when truly that you can label it. But the higher wisdom says, unlabel it, unravel it, grow in this eternal growing, this eternal river of life is forever infinite, and grow in that. So always have that. So it stops you from wanting to label anything anyway, because you're like, oh, I've got to have a childlike innocence perception on this, which means I've never seen it before. I can't label it because I don't understand it. And that's the Father. Because we tend to want to go in and define something and say, well, that's what it is, when the true letters in the Father, which aren't any vocabulary, are far beyond their truth. There's only truth in his letters, in his word, in his frequency, in his vibration, in his love, in his light, in his allness. Nothing can be blemished or a lie in it, no duality. So that is something that I was just kind of pondering, and Father has the same thing as well. Move outside of limitations and break the bonds within yourself, and you will feel around you the bonds breaking. And just know that to be true, don't question it. As soon as you question it, you divide it into, there must be, an answer for it. And truly, it's done. That's the knowing that we practice to stay in and get in throughout the day and throughout our meditation and throughout why we actually are walking this journey. Truly, why are we walking this journey? Why are we spending all our time in the Father and in these truths and this understanding, in this meditation, you would say, that's consistent, the prayer that's consistent every day, and we get better, bigger, harder, faster, and more spiritually strong, and have more spiritual discernment as we keep moving into that. But everything else just falls away and becomes redundant. This physical third density just falls away and drifts away and becomes nothing. More and more and more as you move further and further into the Father, until we can be there at his feet, unblemished and cloaked in his light. So yeah, great thoughts. You have a good day, and I hope that everything is good for you guys, and the Father is just pouring out his blessings right now. Think of his blessings as there's a net, like a fishing net, with ample blessings in it. Think of those blessings and ask, why aren't they falling through? Why aren't I being blessed beyond abundance? And I'm not talking money or physical abundance. I'm talking abundance in fearlessness, peace, love, abundance in attributes, which is the value of values. But why aren't I feeling abundant? And then you'll see this little string hanging that holds, and as soon as you untwine that string, it breaks the net. It pulls out, and the net falls down with an abundance of blessings, an abundance of his attributes, his love, and his perfection within you and around you will start to manifest that, because that's the fruits. So picture that if you feel like you're not being blessed. So blessings to all of you, and I love you guys, and I shall talk to you soon.